All right, everybody. Okay, so it's Wednesday. I'm doing another one today, and I don't really want to do this one, but I do want to talk about it, because I think that it's worth addressing. So I will make myself very clear on this. Just be aware. I'm doing the new song, I guess. I don't know exactly what it is. I think it's a song. By the people who incited a coup at the Capitol in January of 2021, featuring Donald Trump. Now, I haven't listened to the song yet. I wasn't planning to ever listen to it, but I think I'm going to, right? So I'm going to talk about my thoughts after the video, after the song, and we'll see. I will say up front, disinformation, misinformation, conspiracy theories, these are things that I am passionate about. Not that I'm into them, in that I find it fulfilling to debunk and fight against them. So we'll see what's in the song, and then we'll talk about it afterwards. Fortunately, it's short. So the song is called Justice for All, and we'll listen to it here in a second. Obviously, a couple things before we do. Like and subscribe. I always appreciate that. I have no idea what kind of music this is going to be. It might be not very good. I kind of expect it to not be very good. I certainly do not expect to like it. And I will just say that up front. I'm not going to like it because I know what it's about. I usually say, don't be a dick. I would still say that. I don't know if this will get any sort of, broader traction that will bring trolls into the comments or not. I will try to make my thoughts clear without being too derogatory or unkind. And I would appreciate it if we could keep that sort of energy in the comments as well. There are plenty of things that can be said about what happened, about the people that were involved, why it happened, but we don't have to resort to getting in the mud. There's plenty of things that you can say without resorting to that sort of language. So that's what I would request in the comments. With that out of the way, let's brace ourselves and get ready for Justice for All, featuring Donald J. Trump. Ooh, very ominous.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Well, I did sort of expect that to be a song. I guess technically the Star-Spangled Banner is a song, but this isn't. I thought it was going to be an original composition. All right. As far as the vocals go, well, we'll address the technical aspects of it first. The vocals are fine. I mean, it's a chorus, right? And it's a song that everybody knows in this country, and everybody has sung it a million times, so you do know where the notes are. Fine. Competent. The music, not very good, frankly. There were times when the note would change that didn't match. Not even, like, I understand, right? You can have contrasting harmonies, you can have dissonance and all that stuff. But it didn't make any sense with where the vocals were going, right? So it sounded off. Personally, I do not like the sound of Donald J. Trump's voice. I find it grating and offensive. So I didn't appreciate that aspect of the song. Now let's get into what's going on here. And I will try to keep this short because I could talk about this for hours. But a recap, because it's crazy. It's crazy to me. It's literal gaslighting. What people talk about when they talk about gaslighting, right? Trying to make you believe stuff that isn't real, or disbelieve stuff that you know to be true, right? Don't trust your eyes. Trust what I'm telling you. That sort of stuff. That's been going on for the last 2 years. And here is what happened. Okay? And I can tell you, I'll give you the timeline. Beginning in 2020, Donald Trump began signaling that he would not concede the race if he lost. He said explicitly, the only way I can lose is if they steal it. Okay? The only way I can lose is if there's fraud. That's what I was looking for. And he started saying that in 2020. And he carried it all the way through the campaign. People in the mainstream news were pointing out, because there's likely to be an abundance of mail-in and or absentee ballots, it is very likely that what you will see on election night is a strong push, red, by people who are voting in person, who are primarily going to be Republican voters because they have been told for a year that voting by mail or voting absentee is not, either it's not legal or it's subject to fraud, or they can just change your vote for you, so you have to be there to vote, right? So you're going to see a lot of people in person voting, and the majority of those are going to be Republicans. And it's going to take a while to count mail-in ballots and absentee ballots. And then what you will have is, overnight, you will likely see some of the vote totals change, some significantly. This is, in fact, what happened. Now, I'm going to make a slight tangent here, but I always forget if it's Bolivia or Ecuador. I think it was Bolivia. Nope, it was Ecuador. So Ecuador had an election in 2019. And in that election, the opposition party, I guess, seemed to be winning. And then, as Evo Morales' supporters, who are more rural, mostly country folks, they came in later. Their votes came in later. And there was a big shift in vote totals. And Evo Morales won. He won by more than 10%, which is enough to avoid a runoff. They declared that there had been fraud. It was supported by the Organization of American States, which was funded by the U.S., and they deposed Morales with the military. They didn't use guns. They just told him, basically, you have to leave. And he fled the country. And Janine Áñez was installed as president. And it took about a year, but they finally did rectify that situation. Evo Morales was the rightful winner. He did deserve to be president. And now he is. Okay, they got rid of Áñez. That was the playbook, the exact playbook that they tried to play in the US in 2020. Right? Say that late arriving votes are fraudulent, have them thrown out, and declare the race for the guy you want to win. So, Donald Trump lost. Full stop. He lost the popular vote. He lost the electoral vote. He lost by a bigger margin than he lost the popular vote in 2016. But he couldn't acknowledge that because he's a narcissist. And his team couldn't acknowledge it because there's too much money from these supporters. And Fox News wouldn't acknowledge it. Okay, so they spent months denying the results of the election, saying that the election was fraudulent, even though they can't point to any real election fraud. They keep trying. I'm telling you, it's been 2 years. They keep looking for examples of enough fraud to change something. And they can't. They can't find it because it's not there. We have extremely safe elections in this country. They have found some fraud, and I'm sure that there are some people who voted twice for Biden. They have definitely found examples of people who voted twice for Trump or voted for their relative who was dead. That has been proven. But understand, the truth is not important to these people. How it feels is important. So they feel like, because they've been told, they feel like the election was stolen from them. Now, I spend some of my time in the darker corners of the internet, and InfoWars, run by noted scumbag Alex Jones, was pushing for this rally. Right, January 6th was the day that the votes were certified, and that was sort of the last-ditch effort on behalf of the right wing to see if maybe there was something they could do to stop the electoral process from playing out. Now, factually, there's not. The way the process works, it's a formality. It doesn't actually matter. There was no way they could stop the certification. But they showed up on January 6th. Some people were armed. Not as many people as maybe left-wingers would claim. Right? I am a left-winger myself. I will fully acknowledge my bias. I am a person who cares about reality, and I find myself on the left. Some people were armed, not as many people, as I said, as maybe we want to imagine, but there were definitely people there with guns. There were definitely people there with other types of weapons. There were people there with zip ties and prepared things for kidnapping elected officials. We know that that was part of the plan. They listened to a speech from Trump. Some of the Proud Boys, who are an extrajudicial militia group, they are right-wing fascists. They're not necessarily racist, although a lot of them are. But they are definitely part of the heritage of the militia movement in the U.S., which has strong ties to neo-Nazis, the Aryan Nations, Louis Beam, Christian Identity Movement, the base, who were blowing up banks and stuff in the 80s. Some of the Proud Boys were heading to the Capitol before Trump had finished his speech or called for people to march to the Capitol, which is how we know, well, also we have texts, but we know that they knew ahead of time that Trump was going to tell people to go to the Capitol because they were already on their way there. There was some protesting, some yelling, some shouting, and then I'm not exactly sure what happened, but the dam broke and the right-wingers stormed the Capitol. They beat police officers. They, in a couple cases, caused life-threatening to life-ending injuries. And let me be clear. I have no love for cops. I have no support for the Capitol Police. I don't really feel sorry for them at all because I don't think they should have been in that profession in the first place. But the reality is they were doing their job, and these right-wing protesters were trying to kill them. They were trying to kill them. We have it on video. They broke into the Capitol. They broke into people's offices. They stole stuff. They took shits in the Capitol, which, like, I don't really care about. I'm not a huge defender of American, institutions. But it's not exactly classy, right? Some people smoked a joint in the Capitol, which, hilarious. There was a woman who was shot and killed because she was trying to break through a door that would have allowed them access to members of Congress. Now, it is sad that she died. It is a tragedy. She was pilled, as they say, red pilled, right? That means it means you've bought the conspiracy. They would say it means that you have taken the red pill and you've seen the truth. That's not actually how it works. It is tragic. She was former military. She had bought into these conspiracies. It's very clear. Like, we have her social media presence. We have some of her posts. We know what she was on about. And she was very into these conspiracies. And that got her killed because she was in a bad place. She was somewhere where she shouldn't have been, part of an angry mob that was trying to go kill elected officials. And, the cop shot her. He did. And she died. A few cops died. A few other protesters died. And then, during the day, right, the day after, the Republicans were condemning it. They were saying, this is horrific. They're breaking windows. They have weapons. They have straps to tie people up. People knew what was really happening. But then the pivot came. And the pivot was two things. First of all, what happened on January 6th was actually just a peaceful protest. And actually, the cops were just letting people in to tour the Capitol because, it's the people's building, right? And two, it was secret Antifa infiltrators who were causing all the violence. Now, part one, untrue. If you've watched the footage, they broke down the barricades. There were some police officers who were trying to defuse the situation, but they were not there to be buddy-buddy. That's part one. Part two is there is zero evidence to support anti-fascists being part of this at all. There's a lot of evidence to suggest right-wing militia types, mostly instigating, like a lot of the people who ended up inside were just part of the crowd, right? They really were, they were mad. They were there to support Trump, and they felt insulted and slighted and whatever, and cheated, I'm sure. But they were not necessarily there with intent. The Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers and the other various assorted militia types, they had a plan. We know they had a plan because we have their texts. It's come out in court. We've seen that they were using military-style formations to move through the crowd to get inside. We know that they had a cache of guns across the river. We know all these things are factual. And we also know that those people would be so furious if you lumped them in with me, right? Because I'm an Antifa super soldier. Look at me, I got painted nails and facial piercings. I must be, one of those queer leftists. I'm not even gay. But, all of us who look like me are, according to these people. I'm a Satanist, too, according to these people. They would be furious if you tried to tell them that actually what happened was people like me were responsible for making them all look bad. They wouldn't take it. Some of these people are proud of what they did. They want credit for it. They have gone on record saying, I'm not part of the left. I believe the election was stolen, and I was there to support my president. Like, what do you want? What more do you want? But over the last 2 years, the right wing has been attempting to make these people into martyrs, right? They're getting jammed up. They don't get due process. I mean, no. Factually, no. The fact that the former president of this country, ostensibly the most powerful man in the world, I don't know who else you could really put up as being more powerful than the president of the U.S. in terms of, economic might, military might, global standing. Incited a coup to try and keep himself in power illegitimately. He lost the election, and they were trying to overturn the results of the democratic election with violence. And what has happened now is they're being turned into nothing more than poor lambs they weren't even there to cause any trouble. They were let in. The cops were showing them around. It was just a friendly day. Nothing bad happened at all. And if it did, it was because of the left. And the former president has co-signed all of this and is continuing to drive it. Political violence in this country has diminished somewhat. I am very concerned about 2024, and I think I am justified in that. I am not particularly worried about being a target myself. I'm a big man. Literally, I'm 6'3". But I do worry about sorts of people who look like me to a degree, right? Sort of non-socially conforming in their appearance, who do not have the same size or build that I have. I do worry about them. And I worry about people like my parents who have gotten not entirely sucked into this, but this is a world built on lies and nonsense and false realities and anger and violence. These people believe that what they did was not a coup. They believed that what they were doing was justified. And now they're in prison, right? They're locked up because of nothing more than loving this country, like the real patriots back in the 1700s. I don't know where this is going to go. It's somewhat chilling to see Donald Trump, who is running for president again, he is still a political figure, collaborating with the people who attempted to violently overthrow our government on a song about how they're not getting justice. And you want to talk about justice in this country? Why don't we talk about all the black men who are killed by police? All the people who are arrested for nothing. The protesters in 2020 who are being thrown in unmarked vans. Like, we can talk about justice. But you don't want to talk about justice. You want to talk about imagined harm. Anyway, I did try to stay away from name calling. I tried to stay away from profanity for the most part because, I was raised deeply conservative. I know the sorts of things conservatives like to pick on to try and dismantle your argument or to try and make it look like your argument is weaker than it really is, right? Oh, you couldn't do this without resorting to profanity. Does it make my statements any less true? No, but I tried to keep this thing pretty even-keeled. But I feel very strongly about this. If anybody wants to talk about it, I'm happy to chat. I do enjoy, I enjoy this stuff. I enjoy learning about it, figuring out people's motivations, getting into why things happen. I knew it was going to happen. It's not something that takes a genius to figure out. It was very clear if you were paying attention. But I remember sitting on my couch watching Twitter as the Capitol was being stormed and just sort of in shock, but not in surprise. I was kind of stunned that it was actually happening, but at the same time, they'd been saying they were going to do it for months, and I was paying attention to the people that were saying those things. I think I'm going to wrap up here. I don't really have a great like button to this. This song is not very good. It's barely a song. It's literally just the Star-Spangled Banner interspersed with Donald Trump saying the Pledge of Allegiance. The music is not very good. The vocals are mediocre. They're fine. Like, listen, I mean, I think they probably are recording it from jail. So for what they had to work with, fine. But I really just wanted to be able to talk about what actually happened, because I think it's important. And it is crazy to me. It's just astonishing that they continue to try to promulgate these lies for money. It's for money at the end of the day, right? It is for power in a certain sense, but most people who have been telling these lies knew the whole time that there was no hope. You weren't going to overturn the election. It wasn't fraudulent, and there's no real recourse, right? They knew that, but it was worth too much money for them to not lie to the people and tell them what they wanted to hear. And as a result, many people's lives have been ruined. And that's really despicable. It's sad because there are some people who, they always wanted this, right? There are people like the people who listen to InfoWars. A lot of them are militia types, and they want violence. They want street violence. They want to have the freedom to kill people like me. That's not even an exaggeration, right? It sounds like an exaggeration, but it's not. They want to kill communists, and they want to kill degenerates. They want to kill leftists or anybody who doesn't subscribe to their version of Christian right-wing theocracy. But a lot of people are just, they're sort of not very well informed conservatives who were just lied to over and over and over until they started to believe it. And that's really sad, because my family falls into that sort of camp of really smart people who, are good Christians and really believe in the Bible and have started to buy into some of these lies because they hate the left so much. It's very depressing to me. Anyway, I know I've rambled. I guess let me know what you think in the comments. I genuinely have no idea if this will get any views or if it will get a surprising number of views from right-wingers who are mad. It's not intended necessarily to generate any rage, right? I've tried to be pretty balanced, truthful, but even in how I have addressed this stuff. But that doesn't really matter to the type of right-wingers who buy these sorts of lies. So we'll see. I would be surprised if this got any sort of real traction. And that's fine, because the song itself is not very good. But I did want to share my thoughts on this. And I may start doing some stuff, dealing more with misinformation. We'll see. But I'm gonna wrap this up. Thank you guys for watching, if you did. Thank you for sticking around to the end. Have a good day. Stay safe. Try to pay attention to what you're listening to, and don't talk to cops.